This video is particularly special for me, not only because of the fact that we're talking about penguins, which are, fun fact, pretty much my favourite animals ever, for a number of reasons, mainly due to the fact that they're cute and they waddle around and don't have a care in the world, but also due to the fact that when I actually found out about this video topic, funny story, I was actually going to be going to the place where the penguin was. So I actually have some first-hand footage related to this video, which is particularly interesting for me and is certainly a first for this channel. I actually went to the place and did the research. So you can thank me later. Yes, by far the absolute strangest thing about this entire video was that I actually had this video on my ideas list for some time and I was going to record it, only to realise in my research that the penguin was at Edinburgh Zoo. The zoo that I was going to visit 3 weeks later. So it was meant to be. And if for some reason you don't believe me, here's a selfie of me with a penguin. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, this was one of the highlights of my entire trip. Okay, that penguin wasn't the exact same penguin. I'm pretty sure I didn't see the exact same penguin, but I went to the zoo and I went to where he was. So whilst I didn't know which one he exactly was, we know that one of these penguins is a knighted penguin, and we're going to talk about that today. Brigadier Sir Nils Olaf III is a king penguin who resides in Edinburgh Zoo, Scotland, mascot and colonel-in-chief of the Norwegian King's Guard. That's a hell of a title. He isn't the first Nils Olaf, mind you, as he is the third one, but the name Nils Olaf and the associated ranks have been passed down through 3 king penguins since 1972. The current holder being Nils Olaf III. This is all pretty remarkable, but you're probably wondering how we even got here and how a penguin even got knighted in the first place. Well, let me fill you in. We have to go back to 1913, when Lord Edward Theodore Salveson, son of Norwegian shipping tycoon Christian Salveson, presented the newly opened Edinburgh Zoo with a king penguin as a gift. As well as the donation of a king penguin, he also made donations to the zoo in order to help develop its king penguin colony. Yeah, I know what you're thinking, that's pretty cool and all, but what's the relevance here? Well, Norway, at that time anyway, was just a couple of years away from being the first country to basically reach the South Pole, and I imagine during their explorations and trips, they managed to pick up a few penguins along the way, including the penguin that they gifted to Edinburgh Zoo. In 1961, the colony was established, and His Majesty the King's Guard Music and Drill Company visited Edinburgh Military Tattoo for the first time. The King's Guard officer was interested in the penguins at the zoo. Like any good man should be, he has a fine taste in animals. Whilst there, he actually wanted to adopt one of his own, to which they returned to Edinburgh in 1972 to formally adopt a penguin who was aptly named Nils Olaf, partly after Nils Egelian and partly in honour of King Olaf V of Norway. Nils Olaf would then be part of the King's Guard, after being adopted with the title of Lance Corporal, the pride of the King's Guard and the official mascot from then on. So yes, to incorporate this penguin as a mascot into the King's Guard was quite charming and also started as a real tradition from there going forward. Being the mascot of their military circles, the penguin, wearing black and white, much like the actual soldiers themselves, would be basically wearing their uniform, which basically just made it even more appropriate. Since 1972, Nils Olaf has been promoted almost every time the King's Guard visits the tattoo, being promoted to Sergeant in 1987, Regimental Sergeant Major in 1993, Honourable Regimental Sergeant Major in 2001, Colonel-in-Chief in 2005, and then received his most noble knighthood in the year 2008. Yes, our penguin was knighted, and just to prove it, here's a picture of him being knighted in front of 130 guardsmen, and he had the sword and everything. You go, my man. This penguin is achieving a lot in his life. In their most recent visit in 2016, the penguin was then given the title of Brigadier, which is the current title that Nils Olaf holds today. Whilst they haven't returned since, then you'd imagine that in the next couple of years they'll hopefully go back, particularly now that all the world plague has gone away. They'll hopefully be able to go visit their mascot and their ally, Nils Olaf III, or should I say, Sir Nils Olaf III. I apologise that the penguin's been knighted, and basically give him another rank, because he deserves it. I mean, he's a penguin after all. And penguins are pretty honourable animals, when they're not crapping and shitting everywhere in their enclosure, mind you. For a penguin of such stature, he of course demands the most spacious of accommodation, living at the Penguins Rock in Edinburgh Zoo, which is Europe's largest outdoor penguin pool. This enclosure has over 100 penguins ranging from king penguins, rockhopper penguins and gentoo penguins. It's a pretty big job to keep them all housed and fed year round, I can imagine. So yeah, some of those photographs and videos that you saw was my videos of being there, visiting the penguins and, paying my respects to Sir Nils Olaf III. And you know what? I had a really, really good time. And just for clarity, no, this video is not sponsored in any way. This is a pure coincidence that I went at the same time that I was going to make a video on the topic and figured that I may as well take some footage whilst I'm there and also proof that I was there, because basically this is a really rare occasion for the channel that I actually go on the ground and do the research myself, to some extent, so pat on the back there. Purely by accident, mind you. Yes, whilst I'm not being sponsored, I would certainly recommend going and visiting. Not only so you can go and visit the penguins yourself, but I'll also be leaving a link to the zoo's donation page in the description of this video, if you want to support the conservation efforts and support the zoo directly. I think that's a pretty cool thing to do, and I'd certainly implore you to go check it out. So yeah, if you're ever in the area, I would highly recommend going and paying a visit. And you may even spot Nils Olaf himself, as on his flipper, he has himself his own medal. So if you're able to spot that, you know that you're looking at Sir Nils Olaf. All I have to say is, thank you. Thank you for your service, you awesome, awesome penguin. And I present to you, Sloths. So, why am I making this video today? Well, it's due to the fact that, as you're probably aware on this channel, I like to make content on the weird and the wonderful. And, well, sloths are pretty strange, and I just wanted an excuse to talk about sloths for 10 minutes, so here we go. A sloth is a neotropical mammal known for their tree-hugging tendencies. Very different from their ground sloth cousins, who are now mostly just found in museum exhibits, but more on that later. Sloths spend most of their days hanging around in trees, moving at a slow pace and a general chill lifestyle in tropical rainforests of South America and Central America. I mean, just look at this guy, he's so cute. I mean, I could literally sit here and just watch him all day. And you know what, that's probably what I'm going to do, because it's going to take him about 5 minutes to climb that tree anyway, so here we go. So, what makes sloths great climbers? And it's a bit strange because they're such slow creatures, and it does make you wonder how they're able to keep themselves in the tree for so long. Well, it's largely due to a couple of factors, but the big one is the fact that they have two large claws on their hands, which they can basically use to grapple and hold onto trees. And because of the fact that they've got incredible grip, they can pretty much hook and clasp themselves onto anything and pretty much stay there as long as they want. It also helps that the muscles in their forearms are specifically built for this purpose, meaning that a sloth can effortlessly hang from a tree for hours on end. Even go to sleep in a locked position and just hang there to basically stay out of the way of predators. They're pretty genius animals. And hey, he's got to the top of that tree. And yes, the general knowledge for sloths is that they're pretty chill and arguably lazy creatures, mainly due to the fact that the average sloth is known to sleep for about 15 hours a day, so for the rest of the time you'd hope that they'd be pretty energetic. But no, they're slow and sluggish. However, there is very good reason for this, and it's largely due to the fact that the sloth doesn't want to expend a lot of energy doing random stuff. Why not conserve the energy you have by doing slow and meticulous movements only when absolutely necessary? Despite the fact that the sloth is incredibly slow, they are incredibly strong animals, and if you were to challenge a sloth to a pull-up competition, you're almost guaranteed to lose. This is due to the fact that from the moment they are born, sloths are able to lift their entire body weight upwards with just one arm. Not only that, but sloths have 30% less muscle mass than similar sized mammals and are over 3 times stronger than the average human. This is helped by their muscle arrangement and that they can lock their limbs into place whilst climbing, making this pretty effortless for them. Almost like they were built for this. No wonder they decide to spend most of their time suspended from the treetops. And yes, if I had the choice, I would sleep for 15 hours too, but I have something called responsibilities and have to go get a job to pay rent, so my spirit animal says I'm a sloth, but in reality, I'm just a corporate monkey. There are a number of differences, however, that makes us very different from the sloth, as whilst I go to the toilet probably 3 times a day due to my horrendous diet, the sloth has been known to relieve themselves only once a week, in which they lose a third of their body weight in one go. That is crazy. I mean, that's like giving birth every week just because you basically don't go the rest of the time. I'm surprised that these guys still feel fine after that long. This bizarre weekly ritual requires them to venture down from their tree, in which they dig a hole at the base of the tree they're on, poop in it, cover it up, and then climb back up the tree. As you might imagine, this is one of the few times that they come down from trees, and it's certainly when the sloth is most vulnerable from predators, which is partly why they don't do it that often. So yes, for some of you sloth lovers out there, you probably knew that already, so let's go into some other facts, something you may not know. Despite the fact that the sloth is incredibly slow, they are actually very quick in the water. So much so that a sloth is an incredible swimmer, and they're actually faster in the water than they are on land, which is helpful for them to traverse the land to get to either a different habitat or maybe even hear the call of a mate. So they can get around when they want to, provided there's a large body of water nearby. So yes, fun fact, a sloth is known as a foliivore, feeding mostly on leaves, fruits, tree sap, and basically they have an incredibly complicated digestive structure with multiple chambers which assists them with digesting tough foods. This results in a low metabolism and a digestion that means that it can take days or even weeks to fully digest food in some cases. Which is also probably the reason that they don't relieve themselves for a week at a time if you're eating nothing but leaves. I might take that away from my own diet, but there we are. The slow and motionless sloth is an odd creature in that it makes you wonder how something so slow has managed to survive for so long and not become prey. This not only comes from their slow and purposely sluggish actions to conserve energy, but it is also an aspect of survival that they have somewhat of a camouflage in order to hide in plain sight in the trees without many people seeing that they're even there. In many sloth species, they have cracks in their hair, allowing different species of fungi and algae to grow, which gives them their greenish colour. So yeah, basically a sloth has an invisibility cloak made out of bacteria, which is both cool and also incredibly odd to say, but that's science for you. The other cool thing is that apparently this bacteria is helpful in the prevention of certain diseases and apparently even combats cancer. As to how true that is, I couldn't tell you, but the internet has some weird and wonderful things on it. So, taking a complete 180 on the topic, did you know that sloths are blind in direct daylight? Probably has something to do with that whole sleeping thing. If you can't see where you're going, then why not just sleep through it? Sloths have this condition called rod monochromacy, which means that they completely lack cone cells in their eyes. As a result, all sloths are colourblind, and can only see quite poorly in dim light and are completely blind in bright light. Look, I am just throwing facts at you left, right and centre today. I mean, I told you at the start of the video I was going to do that, and here I am delivering. And just another one to add on top of it, like any animal that has diminished senses, it has improved senses in other aspects, such as the sloth's smell, which is known to be particularly good. So I guess it's got that going for it, in any event. And you know what, because I'm feeling nice, I'm going to give you one more fact. We don't know how long sloths live for. Yep, you'd think that with the years of study that we would actually know the answer to this, but we don't. Maybe these immortal beings are actually timeless tree gods and that we all have to bow down to them. But no, this is due to the fact that they are actually very difficult to study in the wild, due to the fact that nobody to date has been able to follow and study a sloth from birth to death in the wild, and because of that we don't know how long they live for. However, in captivity, sloths are known to live for about 20 years, but it's suspected in the wild that it might be much more than that. So, the mystery still lingers, and maybe one day in the near future we'll have our answer. But for now, they're just timeless gods that we all have to bow down to. And that is the wonderful world of sloths. Time for me to go and sleep for 15 hours because I'm sick of talking about sloths at this point. And if you ever wanted to get an octopus and place it inside a jar, well, here's one for you right now, because it is entirely possible. The octopus, otherwise known for the collective term as octi, is an invertebrate animal. Known for its 8 long tentacles, are certainly near the top of my list for the animals with the most alien-like characteristics. These guys come in all shapes and sizes. You've got the octopus that are Goliath in size that can take down ships and whales, and then you've got the other ones like this little guy who you just want to boop on the nose. Despite their size, these animals are incredibly intelligent and have become one with the ability to hunt and defend themselves when needed, including the ability to camouflage by matching their colour to that of their surroundings, which allows them to blend in and slip away from sight. Another trait they are known for, of course, is the ability to shoot out a cloud of black ink, dulling the attacker's sense of smell and potentially even vision if you're in the midst of the ink. Let's hope that doesn't stain. But perhaps one of the most interesting characteristics, and the one that we're going to be focusing a lot today, is the fact that an octopus can pretty much squeeze itself into any nook and cranny it can get itself into. And given the size of some of these guys, it's pretty impressive how small they can actually make themselves. The octopus's tentacles are lined with hundreds of suckers, each of which can be moved independently thanks to a complex bundle of neurons that act as a brain, letting the animal touch, smell and manipulate objects at will. This allows them to navigate its surroundings and to find these tight spaces to slide into. Paired with their ability to camouflage, you can understand why these guys are quoted as being masters of camouflage. So, because of the fact that they not only have incredible ability to control and manipulate their own bodies, they are also very soft, meaning that they can fold and squeeze themselves into a tight gap at ease. And that's how they can very quickly get away from predators. For an octopus, the only real thing that they have to worry about is their beak. Yes, octopuses have beaks, and that is pretty much the only hard part on an octopus, so provided that can fit into something, they can pretty much be rest assured that they're going to get the rest of their soft, malleable body to be able to squeeze into that gap too. I suppose you could use the beak almost like a measuring gauge. You may as well try to stick that in first, and if it fits, then the rest of it will go too. I've just realised that out of context, that comment sounded incredibly strange, but bear with me guys, we're talking about octopuses here. You can actually see numerous videos online of this sort of phenomenon happening. There's one in particular of an octopus that is captured by fishermen, and then it manages to escape on board. Not knowing where it went, they kind of go about their day, until they find him in a rather unexpected place. I'm pretty sure it was the teapot or something like that, a small dark area for it to crawl into and hide, but unfortunately fishermen like tea, and that was the one place that they really didn't expect to find an octopus in. Mind you. One of the most well-known instances of this occurring was an octopus at the National Aquarium in New Zealand, and their octopus was called Inky. He isn't a huge octopus by any means, being the size of a football, but that alone probably made it much more difficult to track this guy down. Inky managed to break out of his enclosure and cross the floor and into a narrow drain about 6 inches in diameter, and found his way into the sea. Something straight out of Finding Nemo, and I'm pretty sure that happened in the sequel Finding Dory. It's been a while since I've seen that film. Investigators followed the tracks and found that he'd managed to make his way 8 feet across the floor and slid down a 164-foot long drain pipe that dropped him straight into Hawke's Bay on the east coast of North Island, according to the reports in New Zealand's news media. And, well, zookeepers only realised this happened the day after when they came to find Inky to feed him and then realising he wasn't there. Yeah, must be a pretty awkward moment when you realise that the animals in your aquarium are able to escape, but there we are. While staff did find out what happened to Inky and how he escaped, by that point, my man was long gone. There was absolutely no way they were going to find this guy after that. I mean, it's not even like the drains had to be open for this to happen. Octopus are able to use their arms and suckers to hold, grip and twist anything they need to, including, I imagine, a drain top if they need to slide into it. They're so dexterous in fact, there's instances of octopus who are able to twist the lid off a jar, which is pretty impressive in itself. There was even another instance of this happening, where an octopus in a British aquarium was able to easily slip out of his tank every night in the aquarium, only to slither its way across the ground to a tank opposite it to have a midnight snack on some fishies. And then before day broke, he went straight back into his tank like nothing happened. Eventually he did get caught, hence why there's an article on this, but it was pretty funny nonetheless that this little squishy octopus managed to make its way out without anybody realising for such a long time. So, if you ever want to put an octopus in a box, I don't know why you'd want to, but it's possible. Provided you can get that little beak in there, the rest of it should be pretty easy. And yes, today we're talking about the fact that in nature, dolphins wingman each other in order to try and court a mate. This all sounds like fun and games on paper, but actually, when I go into a little bit more detail, this is all going to be a little bit more sinister than first meets the eye. And yes, there's a lot to talk about in today's video, and I'm just going to say this out right now. This video isn't for kids, so bear that in mind when going ahead. You've been warned. This is nature we're talking about here. You can pretty much blame the dolphins on this one. As dolphins are deemed to be intelligent animals, they are also considered to be much more socially aware than most other animals, going as far as wild animals forming social groups with other males, mostly those that they are related to, all of which with the sole intention of getting lucky with a female dolphin. Dolphins come in all shapes and sizes, but the studies that I'll be referring to today all pretty much looked at the behaviour through the lens of a bottlenose dolphin, arguably the most well-known species of dolphin. Lead researcher Dr. Fernando Diaz-Aguirre explains that the male dolphins in South Australia's Coffin Bay appear to form these groups with close relations, mainly due to the fact that they probably feel more comfortable and at ease with family, which makes complete sense. These sorts of behaviours in social groups haven't been seen in dolphins in captivity, mainly because of the fact that they're probably in an aquatic prison and can't really go out and have that independence like many wild dolphins do. I mean, put it this way, if you're a dolphin and you're in captivity, your options are pretty limited. Why would you need a wingman when you're pretty much the only choice there? The study I'll be looking at today was undertaken in southern Australia, as the dolphins found that if they'd work together in larger groups, they would be more successful in finding a mate. Fernando went on to comment on the following tactic these dolphins would undertake. There are not enough females to go around, so the males work together to herd a female away from the pod and then would court her as a collective. Yeah, I'm not really too much of a fan of where this is going, people. Like I said, this is nature. Now, I should probably provide a little bit of context behind that quote, because yes, whilst there is normally an even amount of male and female dolphins, it's not always going to be a balanced amount, due to the fact that once a dolphin becomes pregnant and then gives birth to a calf, that is pretty much the only calf it has for that period of its life. And that dolphin can be a mother for anywhere up to 5 years before the calf, now fully grown dolphin, goes off on its way. So really, that is a long period of time where there is a female that isn't looking for a man in its life, because that dolphin is a strong, independent dolphin who don't need no man in her life. These young dolphin, once they grow to about 5 years of age, will then go off and join a pod to hone their skills in whatever will best suit them in the future. So, for females, they might stick near their mothers in order to be better prepared for motherhood, or look out to be better hunters to be able to feed themselves and any potential offspring they may have. Whilst the males, on the other hand, basically go to dolphin college and join a dolphin frat, or a pod in this case, and they are seen to socialise together a lot more. And it is those social skills that the dolphin will learn and develop in order to help them court a mate in the future, with scientists even noting that the dolphins will tend to stick together in their own families, more so due to the fact that if only one of them gets lucky, at least their bloodline is the one to go on, rather than just being a wingman for any other dolphin that's out there. These groups also ensure that they can protect a female from other male dolphins who might try and do the same. It's not just in Australia that these behaviours have been identified and studied, however. with similar social behaviours having been found in populations in bottlenose dolphins elsewhere. So it's just in the dolphin code to do this. So yeah, if the dolphins are doing this and were acting in a way where they were civil, courteous and almost gentlemanlike to the female dolphins, then I'd respect it. But we all know that's probably not the reality here. As well, a common behaviour that is being seen is that if a dolphin looks to court a female dolphin that has a calf which isn't theirs, the first thing the male dolphin will do is pretty much punt that little guy as far as they can. And no, I'm not joking, that is a behaviour that they've actually done in the wild. Basically, kick the child aside and say, "Not on my watch." This rather sickening behaviour actually has a term called porpoiside. And yeah, I wouldn't Google it because it's pretty nasty. So these sociocide dolphins pretty much go ahead as bullies and punt the poor calf into submission, not because there's any risk of territory or food scarcity, any other reason that might mitigate the fact as to why they do this, but this act of cruelty is basically done just because they can. So yeah, bet you didn't think I'd be saying that in today's video, and that's partly why at the start I did give you the warning and saying this one ain't for kids. Mainly because the kids are the ones that are going to get punted. And yes, whilst we're talking about the fact that this video isn't child friendly, we should probably address the elephant in the room and talk about the thing that I've omitted to talk about the entire time. And that is what the reality of the dolphin wingman method actually is. Basically, with all the males in the pod segregating a female away so they can court her. I think you can probably guess where this is going. Because yes, I know that we would all love for nature to be just like a Disney movie, but the reality is a lot more messy than that. In nature, let's just call it by its scientific name, non-consensual copulation, either from a single dolphin or multiple dolphins at the same time. So yeah, this wingmanning thing isn't quite what you'd expect it to be. Nature is pretty messed up. This activity extends to pretty much anything and everything that they can get their flippers on. From dead fish, eels, ocean trash, jellyfish, and even other male dolphins. They will try it on with whatever and whomever they feel like. On some occasions, even humans. They truly have no shame. That's right, there's the Turner phrase, bros before hoes, and then the literal interpretation of that, whatever floats your boat, I guess. So yeah, this was one of those facts I found online, and then when researching into it further, found out the reality of what it was actually about. So if I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell you the full story, and you can expect nothing less. And yes, we're talking about this little fella right here, the leaf sheep. Costocoelia koroshime, otherwise known as the leaf sheep, is actually a species of sea slug mollusks, mainly found in the coastal waters near Japan, Indonesia, and the Philippines. The mouthful of a scientific name is a combination of Latin and Japanese, the first part being the broad name for all sea slugs in the group, and Koroshime being the name of the Japanese island when the species was first discovered. And the reason that these things haven't been discovered until real recently is mainly due to the fact of how small they are. They are anywhere between 5mm to 1cm in size, so very small indeed. And just to demonstrate how recently we've discovered these animals, the first ones were found in the year 1993, so barely 30 years ago. As you can tell from the look of the animal, the name leaf sheep is aptly named due to its small dark eyes on a round head, looking a little like a sheep head on a large body. Instead of wool, however, they have a body which resembles that of a bunch of leaves. The hairs on the body are so sensitive that they can sense chemicals in the water in order to find alternate food sources. And like any good sheep, of course, they are very attentive when it comes to food. Kinda like me. Leaf sheep have rhinophores on their head that look like the ears of a sheep, in perspective of their faces. They also resemble antennae on insects, which makes sense, given that they are sea slugs, but named the leaf sheep even though they are not sheep nor leaves. And yes, whilst they look like sheep, they do act like them as well, given the fact that they roam around finding algae and eating it and grazing it wherever they are. So not only do they look like them, but they also share some very, very similar traits. Whilst these animals look very unique and very cool, the real interesting thing about this animal isn't the fact that it even looks like a sheep. It is the chemical and biological capabilities this animal has which makes it truly stand out from anything else we've seen before. This type of sea slug can use a chemical process called kleptoplasty, which, no, is not stealing stuff as the name might suggest, but comes from the Greek term meaning thief. The leaf sheep is able to retain chloroplasts from the algae the leaf sheep feeds upon. They absorb the chloroplasts and this allows them to perform photosynthesis. You know, that thing you learnt in school once, which you probably forgot. That whole thing about how plants are able to survive by using the sun. Photosynthesis. So plants are able to convert light energy into a chemical which then they can use to feed upon. It's actually pretty essential to how plants work and how they even survive in the wild, hence why the majority of plants will rely on sunlight of some description. And yes, whilst photosynthesis is very, very important when it comes down to plants living, it's not really something that most animals do, mainly because animals get their energy from other alternate food sources, by consuming the food, which is something that the leaf sheep can do on both fronts. They are able to eat all the algae they want, but they are also able to have photosynthesis, and are able to use that process to get even more energy if they really need to. So, why is a leaf sheep able to do this? Due to their diet primarily being algae, they consume it, suck out the chloroplasts and photosynthesize this way, making them bioluminescent, hence why they are so bright and colourful. As part of every unique group of sea slugs who can photosynthesize, named Sacoglossa, they are often known as solar-powered sea slugs. According to a 2009 research paper on functionality of chloroplasts in animal cells, they state that the ability to photosynthesize differs between different animals and how they do this. Some which use this as a supplementary form of gaining energy, whilst others simply use this as a way to survive for months at a time, meaning that they don't even have to eat if they get enough energy. And just to give you some sweet data, the leaf sheep is able to survive without actual food and photosynthesize for about 10 days, as per this chart. The value of the chloroplast's photosynthesis was measured every day in this study after the capture of the animal. The yield of photosynthesis was measured against the days of starvation in the animal, and that they found generally the leaf sheep, whilst it had this ability, was not the most effective animal at doing this. So, this marine sea slug, which I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, is the green line on this chart in comparison to the much smaller black line for the measures of the leaf sheep. While he may be more effective at retaining chloroplasts, he is not half as cool or as good looking as the leaf sheep. So, you can't win them all, I'm afraid. So, if someone was just going to come up to me and say the words sea slug to me in conversation, the first thing that comes to mind is something like this, rather than something that looks awesome and cool like the leaf sheep. So, I think there's already a bit of an expectation there, but when you find out about something this awesome, then maybe it changes your perspective on things. Don't judge a book by its cover, people, or don't judge a sea slug by slug standards. So, I know what you're thinking, Tank, can I get one of these awesome slugs as a pet? No, probably not. I mean, they aren't really considered pets, mainly because of the fact that we actually don't know a lot about them. And really, is it right to grab one out of its natural habitat and stick it in a tank somewhere and look after it as a pet? I mean, it might be fine, but research into the animal is still in its infancy due to the fact that we've barely even known they've existed for the past few decades. We are still learning so much about these animals, and we don't even fully understand how long they live for, or if they require anything else to live, which perhaps is why we can't have them in captivity or have them as a pet. There are, of course, other ethical questions around this matter as well, so at the moment, no, you can't get a pet. But that doesn't stop us from learning more and more about these awesome animals and being able to find new species even to the modern day. And these reasons might be why this animal is your new favourite animal. If you liked the video, be sure to like and subscribe. If you want to be notified as soon as I upload my next video, be sure to hit the bell button. And if you've got any ideas for what topics you'd like me to discuss next, let me know down in the comments below. As always, sources used in the video will be in the description. Looking at these images, you would almost think that this animal was made up, that it looks so colourful and so unique in its, I would say design, but this is a real living animal we're talking about, in its features, that this thing almost looks like a breed of Pokemon or something. But no, this is a very real animal, which we are still learning everything about at this time. So yeah, leaf sheep, add it to your list of favourite Pokemon, I mean animals. I'll see you guys in the next video. Fantastic.